Say what you want about Paddy Pimblett, but he is 2-0 in the UFC with a pair of first round finishes under his belt, and that's gotta count for something, right? And yet, I do think it's fair to say that his win on Saturday night, though impressive in spots, probably wasn't enough to make believers of those who doubt his legitimacy as a real elite prospect. But I think for me, as someone who's actually never really seen him as an elite prospect, and by that I mean top 5 potential, for me it's just easier to take this win, take his 2-0 UFC record, and sit back and enjoy the show, because love him or hate him, the man is causing some serious waves. The narrative going into this fight was, and rightfully so, that Paddy The Baddy is a little too happy keeping his chin right up in the air when he strikes. He does seem to be lacking in certain areas that may come back to bite him later on, and once again it showed. Had Paddy not got tagged prior to shooting in for that takedown, it would have left the performance looking a lot cleaner, even if he did find himself on the defensive on the mat for a bit. Overall though, this whole striking defense thing is once again front and center in our thoughts, but with the obvious negatives out of the way, it definitely was good to see Pimblett showing us a bit of his bread and butter, his more natural skill set being a grappler, in comparison to what we got in his debut. When he finally secured that throw and then later the submission, again his brand will remain intact, and in fairness to him, 2 first round finishes is a good start, no matter what the level of opposition is. And I think, knowing Paddy's levels like I do, having watched his rise through Cage Warriors, a measured pace as far as matchmaking is concerned will definitely be the right approach here. Let the man milk his moment. Let him improve where he clearly needs to, and let's just see how things go, because I don't feel like there's a need to rush, and as I'll get to shortly, I do think that Paddy and his management are well within their rights to turn down a fight or two if they're not the exact right matchup for him, but we'll come back to that later. The main storyline to emerge from UFC London as far as Pimblett was concerned was of course the mid-fight week feud with Ilia Topuria, and the post-fight call-out from the featherweight and lightweight prospect that ended up planting the idea of these two fighting in our minds. Personally, I don't think there's a chance in hell that it happens right now. I have definitely been wrong before, but I believe that this one just doesn't work for the UFC, and it certainly doesn't work for Paddy, not only because of the stylistic matchup. This wasn't a rivalry born out of a competitive desire from Topuria to take on Pimblett. It really did seem to stem from those comments that Paddy made about Ilia's home country. Now whether this happened and Topuria saw the dollar signs or whatever, it makes no difference. I just think at this stage, Paddy, like Sean O'Malley before him, needs to understand his worth and refuse to take that step up until he's both ready to do so and, above all other things, adequately compensated for the insane numbers he's bringing in. Dana White himself was quite ecstatic talking about how the stare down for the heavyweight main event did about 100,000 or so views on his Instagram, while Paddy's did well over 1 million. And believe me, I'm going to cover Tom Aspinall very soon, and it's going to be a video that has far more in the way of weight to it, within the context of the division in question and the sport as a whole. On a quick side note, if you're enjoying this content and would like to stay up to date with all of our weekly uploads, be sure to subscribe to the channel now, or I'll be sure to lob a bottle of hand sanitizer right through your desktop monitor and off the side of your head, with love, of course. But anyway, one look at the confirmed payouts for UFC London was pretty illuminating. On that list of names who competed for this truly special event, you had the big earners: Alexander Volkov, Dan Hooker, Tom Aspinall, guys who broke 6 figures before any win bonuses or Venom payouts were brought into play. Then you had the mid-tier guys, multi-fight veterans like Arnold Allen, Paul Craig, Gunnar Nelson, who did pretty well with their pay. And then you drop down another tier or two until you get to the very bottom, where you have the lowest of the low, the 4 fighters who took home the minimum purse to show, and obviously double if they win. You had the debutant Mohamed Mokaev, who we'll also be covering very soon, his opponent Cody Durden. Both guys got 12k if they show, 12k to win. Elise Reed, who fought second on the card, 12k to show, 12k to win. And finally, you had the UFC's newest star, Paddy Pimblett, who could be said was the biggest star on the card, who despite netting both his win bonus and his performance of the night check, came into this fight with his contract showing 12k to show, 12k to win. I saw some bullshit numbers being thrown around that Paddy himself has dismissed. 12k to show, 12k to win. That appears to be the correct figure. Of course he has the Barstool Sports deal, and again of course he got the performance of the night bonus, but that's not the point. When the biggest attraction on the card is on a 12k contract, I think it makes perfect sense that Pimblett has no interest in the Topuria fight. And don't get me wrong, it's a horrible matchup, and I'm sure that Paddy himself sees the risk and reward. But for now, his own rate of pay is front and center. The fact that it will give him extra time to improve where he clearly needs to is certainly another bonus in itself, but that's not even the full picture. Topuria is ranked as the number 15 featherweight in the world, and he just knocked out a really good lightweight in Jai Herbert. Ilya is on his own trajectory here. I would consider him a real A-level prospect at 145 pounds, and potentially a fighter with a bright future at 155. So yeah, the conversation over this fight only really exists because of Topuria taking issue with Paddy's comments. It makes no sense in terms of either man's progression, in terms of building Paddy as a star, and as far as managing risk in this crucial early stage of his career goes. As much as some fans like to say that anyone should fight anyone and so on, there is an art to measuring yourself at this delicate early stage of star building and prospect nurturing. Ilya Topuria looks elite. Paddy Pimblett does not. And I think that's kind of all I need to say. So I have no interest, the UFC clearly don't, and I'd imagine that Paddy just wants to fight out his contract and get a better one before doing anything crazy. If down the line it's meant to happen, it'll happen. But for now, let's just leave it at that. But what do you think of a matchup between Pimblett and Topuria? And do you think it would be Ilya who gets his hand raised, or would Topuria be the one who comes out on top? Sorry, that's a bad joke. Anyway, do let us know your opinions in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and a comment before subscribing to the channel so you can stay up to date with all of our weekly uploads. Thank you for watching.